Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. Next to me is Mr. Eddie Bigger. Eddie is in a cool suit and he's from the coast and going to talk about the coast and cannabis and more. And over in the wings, as usual, we're happy that John Cornett is feeling up to come in and playing us some music tonight. Welcome back, John.
Oh, nice, good to be back. I just want to say, be strong, Clay. Paul is on the way.
Yeah, our team member here at Cannabis Common Sense, who's worked in the studio for a long, long time, Clay Pierce, is being held in a hellish jail in El Salvador. And we'll be talking more about him in a moment. We have our Hemp News segment, some interesting videos. Be talking to Eddie and taking your phone calls after we bring on the infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves.
I feel the force.
All right, the hemp flame is lit. Our first story tonight is about the whole sleet of states that are on the verge of legalizing marijuana. First, Vermont says they will legalize marijuana early in January, according to the Vermont Speaker of the House. A top Vermont lawmaker says the state could become the first in the United States to legalize marijuana through an act of lawmakers early next year. According to Vermont House Speaker Mitzi Johnson, a Democrat, she says, quote, "It'll be up for a vote in early January. I expect that it will pass in early January," end quote, the speaker says. In 2017, the state fell just short of enacting legalization earlier this year. The legislature passed a bill to legalize personal cannabis possession and growing at home, but Republican Governor of Vermont, Phil Scott, vetoed it. However, in doing so, he laid out a few small changes he wanted legislators to make in order to win his support. The Senate quickly acted to make the requested revisions, but the House was not able to jump through procedural hurdles to get it done in the time during the short special session over the summer. Because the legislature operates on a biennial basis there in Vermont, like Oregon, the bill is still alive and the House just needs to take one more vote to get the bill onto the governor's desk. Last week, Vermont Governor Scott said he's comfortable signing a marijuana legalization bill into law early next year. All 8 states that have ended cannabis prohibition to date have done so via the ballot initiative measures approved by voters. Reform supporters think that either Vermont or New Jersey, where New Jersey's new governor-elect Phil Murphy, a Democrat, campaigned on legalization, will be the first state to end prohibition through an act of the state legislature's lawmakers. Vermont's approach would be different than the laws that exist in other states. It would enact a non-commercial form of legalization where only possessing small amounts of cannabis and growing a few plants at home would be legal. There would initially be no licensed stores where consumers could purchase marijuana, but the Vermont Senate passed legislation would create a commission to study possible future commercialization. New Jersey lawmakers, on the other hand, are expected to consider full-scale commercial legalization right away, something that Murphy repeatedly argued on the campaign trail is necessary to undermine the illegal market in New Jersey. Because Vermont's compromise bill has already cleared one chamber and now just needs approval from the other, the state seems poised to get its legislation across the finish line sooner than the Garden State can act. But down in Delaware, they're on track for legalization next year too. Delaware could very well live up to its name and become the first state to legalize marijuana through legislation, as the Adult Use Cannabis Task Force continues the effort to study the possibility. The task force, comprised of several Delaware state agencies was formed earlier this year through a concurrent resolution passed by the General Assembly to study the outcome of regulating and taxing marijuana for adult use in Delaware for adults 21 and older. The Delaware Task Force, co-chaired by State Senator Margaret Rose Henry and State Representative Helen Keeley, has met once a month since its inception to discuss the possibility of legalizing marijuana. House Bill 110 there in Delaware, if passed, would create a marijuana regulation fund which would consist of taxes collected on marijuana, license fees paid by marijuana businesses, and any fines imposed on them. On Wednesday, earlier this week, the next task force meeting is scheduled to take place and will focus on public safety issues regarding legalization. The task force will issue a detailed report and recommendations over the study for the next year. 8 states have enacted laws regulating marijuana for adult use: Alaska, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. And in the District of Columbia, voters enacted a law making personal possession and home cultivation legal for adults 21 and older. Then, a little closer to Oregon in the Midwest, out of Lansing, Michigan, the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol turned in more than 360,000 signatures earlier this month, calling for its marijuana legalization initiative to be placed on Michigan's November 2018 ballot. The Michigan State Board of Canvassers approved ballot measure language on May 18th of this year. Shortly afterward, the campaign began its 180-day statewide signature collection effort using both volunteer and paid signature collectors. If ultimately passed by Michigan voters in November next year, the initiative would legalize personal possession, cultivation, and use of limited amounts of cannabis for adults 21 and older. It would also legalize the cultivation of industrial hemp used to make textiles, biodegradable plastics, food, construction materials, and even fuel. Local governments will have the choice of whether and when to allow marijuana businesses in their communities. On a sadder note, up in Seattle, a friend of mine, Joanna McKee, a pioneering medical marijuana activist in Washington State who went to sometimes difficult lengths to obtain the drug for patients she served, has died at the age of 74. McKee passed away back on November 18th. McKee was a fixture at marijuana policy hearings in the Washington legislature, where she often testified from her wheelchair, sporting a colorful eye patch and accompanied by her service dog. She and her partner, Stitch Miller, founded Seattle's first cannabis co-op, the Green Cross Patient Co-op, in 1993, 5 years before Washington approved its medical marijuana law. She'd used marijuana to treat debilitating pain from an accident and unsuccessful surgeries. After seeing a news report about cannabis buyers clubs for AIDS patients in San Francisco, she decided she wanted to give patients the excess marijuana she grew at her home on Bainbridge Island. Eventually, she was raided by the state drug agents, and she moved to the Seattle area and continued that until recently. Our next story is on medical science out of Michigan State University. A chemical found in marijuana known as tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, has been found to potentially slow the process in which mental decline can occur in up to 50% of HIV patients, according to a new Michigan State University study. According to Norbert Kaminsky, the lead author of the study, now published in the journal AIDS, he said, quote, "It's believed that cognitive function decreases in many of those with HIV, partly due to chronic inflammation that occurs in the brain. This happens because the immune system is constantly being stimulated to fight off the disease," end quote. Kaminsky and his co-author, Mike Rizzo, a graduate student in toxicology, discovered that the compounds in marijuana were able to act as anti-inflammatory agents, reducing the number of inflammatory white blood cells called monocytes and decreasing the proteins they release in the body. Rizzo said, quote, "This decrease of cells could slow down or maybe even stop the inflammatory process, potentially helping patients maintain their cognitive function longer," end quote. The two researchers took blood samples from 40 HIV patients who reported whether or not they'd used marijuana. Then they isolated the white blood cells from each donor and studied inflammatory cell levels and effects marijuana had on the cells. According to Kaminsky, he said, quote, "The patients who didn't smoke marijuana had a very high level of inflammatory cells, compared to those who did use cannabis. In fact, those who used marijuana had levels pretty close to a healthy person not infected with HIV, end quote. Kaminsky, the director of Michigan State University's Institute for Integrative Toxicology, had studied the effects of marijuana on the immune system since 1990. His lab was the first to identify the proteins that can bind marijuana compounds on the surface of immune cells. Up until then, it was unclear how these compounds, also known as cannabinoids, affected the immune system. HIV, which stands for the human immunodeficiency virus, infects and can destroy or change the functions of immune cells that defend the body. With antiretroviral therapy, a standard form of treatment that includes a cocktail of drugs to ward off the virus, these cells have a better chance of staying intact. Yet even with this therapy, certain white blood cells can still be overly stimulated and eventually become inflammatory. Rizzo said, quote, "We'll continue investigating these cells and how they interact and cause inflammation specifically in the brain. What we learn from this could also have implications for other brain-related diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, since the same inflammatory cells have been found to be involved in those diseases," end quote. Knowing more about this interaction could ultimately lead to new therapeutic agents that could help HIV patients and others specifically maintain their mental function. And that is the end of our hemp news segment for tonight, and Mr. John Cornett is ready to play a song. Hey, John.
Hey, Paul, how you doing? This is a
Doing
song.
pretty well.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Very glad to hear that. Me too.
Good.
Big bounce back from some very turbulent times here recently. But I'm very happy to report that with the help of cannabis oil, in particular CBD oil, which I've been taking religiously for the last 3 going on 4 months now, I have not had a seizure in 3 months and 1 week. And I was having them regularly, grand mal seizures for one every month, Judy. It was hell on earth, but thank you, God. Thank you, cannabis. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, this song right here reminds me, thank you, Pink Floyd, for reminding us to breathe. It goes like this. Breathe in the air. Don't be afraid to care. Leave. Don't leave me. Look around. Choose your own ground. Long you live, high you fly, smiles you give and tears you cry. All you touch and all you see is all your life will ever be. Run, rabbit, run. Dig that hole, forget the sun. When the last day is done, don't sit down, time to dig another one. Long you live and high you fly, lonely if you ride the tide. Balance on the biggest wave, race the world in the early grave. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, John. Welcome, Eddie. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you on. And it's a live show, and it's going to work a lot better when I wear my microphone. I'm sure people can hear me a little bit better right now. So, Eddie Bigger, you're welcome to the show. So you live out on the coast in Newport. So there's a picture. Let's see if we can get camera 1 or 2 or whatever it is to close in on this. What is this newspaper? The New Time?
News Time, or the news, or what is it? I gotta look it again.
It's the Statesman Journal out of Salem.
Yeah.
The state capital. So there you are on the cover. When is this? When did this paper come out?
That was July 31st.
I see. So
this
you're
year.
holding a sign on the side of the road that says $5 grams, which is a pretty good price.
We got $3 grams too.
Wow.
We work really hard at keeping our cannabis affordable for the people in
So is
town.
that individual grams? You can go
Yes,
and say,
sir.
here's $3.
$3,
Like a gram.
$3.60 out the door.
Okay.
Yep, it's
That's pretty good. So
But
when
yeah,
you say we, who do you mean by we?
Newport Cannabis Medicine. If people mention that they saw me on the show at any of our stores, we'll give you our daily special, whatever special you want. Whatever day of the week it is.
Okay.
We really do like to keep it affordable. I think it's so cool how our community in Newport has embraced me. I even got to
I
be.
saw a picture of you with the sheriff. Now, what is this about the Adams family? Somebody, I got an email saying you were great with the Adams family.
Yeah.
So let me get this. Camera 1 can try to close in on this one. So what is going on here? Is this a stage production?
We did a play at the Performing Arts Center there in Newport. It's the Adams family. And they made a new character in the Adams family. I was an ancestor.
You weren't Lurch or anything.
No. He was great though. I loved him. He was.
But
he was
you were
wonderful.
an ancestor with
I was
cannabis?
an ancestor, yes. And I had a sign that said I should have brought you pictures, but if you
There's
look
a
on
lot of signatures on there.
Oh yeah, mine's up there. Edward Weedman Bigger.
I see.
But they made me a suit. My girlfriend Dawn and my daughter Brianna Bigger, they helped make me a suit with stencils, and then made me a weed suit. So
that's not the suit you're wearing.
No.
I've seen other people with that suit, specifically in the Las Vegas Marijuana Business Conference last month, and I saw a whole bunch of them at the Emerald Cup.
Really?
I didn't go to the Emerald Cup myself, but I saw pictures of people in that suit.
Yeah, it draws a lot of attention. And
it does.
At first I was like, kind of hesitant. Sometimes, like say I walk into a Burger King and I see a mother and their children, depending on the look on the mom's face, is, how I'll approach them and all.
Yeah.
And then, but then, like I'd feel kind of, like I should cringe almost. Like where I work, when I'm on the highway, I wave to customers for our Newport Cannabis Medicine.
I see.
And a school bus goes by. I'll go pretend like I'm tying my shoe, or I won't wave a school bus. So, and people know that, and I get respect for that, and I give them respect. But it's like our community has just so much embraced the weed man. The character they made for me was Herb Adams.
You were Herb Adams.
I was Herb Adams.
That's a pretty good name.
And then I said, well, also I got to speak with the sheriff.
Yeah.
At the addiction vigil. My sister died of a heroin overdose. Her name was Stacy Tesh.
My condolences.
She rest in peace.
Happen?
Yeah, she died of that crap. Well, 6 years ago. 6 years ago.
I have a half brother who I never really knew, but he also died from a heroin alcohol interaction apparently in Texas. So it's pretty common. I didn't really know him. I found out about it that he even existed after he'd passed away. But
it is amazing to hear how the deaths and overdoses have gone down since the use of cannabis now,
right?
Hasn't it? I mean, a lot of states.
It is, and you're seeing that in all the different states that have medical marijuana or recreational adult use marijuana. The opioid addiction rate and overdose rate go down dramatically.
Yeah, thank the Lord.
And that is a blessing. There's no doubt about it. I have a collection of antique medical marijuana containers. I've sold off a lot of them to the Ohio-based Cannabis Museum and Don Wirtschafter to cover my legal expenses. But and we'll talk more about that briefly. You look more ghostly in this picture. I see now. You look like a.
That's why I still got the nails. My daughter did my nails.
When when were you in it? Oh, December 3rd. You were doing it until December 3rd.
Until December 3rd. It was so neat. I mean.
So your 10, 11-year-old daughter did your nails. That's fun.
Oh yeah, and she was in there with me in the play. She got to see the play many times.
All right.
And now she wants to go on. I forget what it's called. What's it called, Brianna?
A tour.
Well. America's Got
Talent. Okay, well, good luck on that, Brianna. That's a big ambition. There's a lot of people competing in that, so I hope it's not too hard on her. But
I brought these for you, Paul.
Okay, well, I'll save them.
I also brought you a pair of my weed man glasses.
I appreciate that. They kind of look like Devo or something, right? It's
they're
futuristic shades, UV 400 CE. Okay, well, thank you. I need some new glasses.
There we go.
We are live. It is the 15th of December, 2017. If you're watching us, you can call in and ask Eddie, Weedman Bigger, or myself any questions. There's where the logo would have gone. But, we are a live show, then we're all volunteer. I'm a volunteer. Eddie's a volunteer. There's a whole team of people behind the cameras that you never see that are also volunteers. So, if you have a question for us, though, you can call us at that number that's there on your screen. It's 503-673-8579. That's 503-673-8579. Also, we are streaming live on Facebook and Ustream. On Facebook, we topped over 5,000 views last week. I think this is about our fourth show in a row to start doing that with about... I don't know exactly how many at any given time, but by the end of the hour, we had topped 5,000 views, which was pretty good for an hour. No record-breaking stuff there, but it's pretty good. But again, if you have a question for Eddie, Weedman Bigger, or myself, you can call us at 503-673-8579. That's 503-673-8579. So there, I got that out of the way.
And then what? December 10th or January 10th, we get to talk on
your radio show. So you do a radio show at what station in Newport?
100.7 The Boss FM.
I see. See.
I started The Boss.
Do they play a lot of Bruce Springsteen there?
Like really. Oldies, kind of oldies.
Well, Bruce is kind of old.
Yeah.
Almost as old as me.
Almost as old as you. No,
well, no, he's a little older than me. Actually,
is he really?
I'm not quite as old as Bruce, but I'm working on it. We do have a phone caller that's come in according to the signal there, and so let's see if we can bring that phone call in the studio. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello, caller. Can you hear us? Testing. 1, 2, 3. I guess not. Nope, the caller has given up. Well, this is your chance, guys, to call in at 503-673-8579. We used to have a phone system that could take multiple phone calls and have several on hold, but we've had this temporary system that will only take one at a time. And when someone's trying to call in on top of it, you hear the tone like you would on your phone at home, like click, click, click.
But then beep, beep.
One of these days, we hope that they get their phone system back to where it had been for many years, but time will tell. Now, I also want to mention that we have this banner turned around because of a court order from Israeli-Canadian oil company called Adira Energy. They went into Multnomah Court and claimed that they owned my company, and based on spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorneys, the court listened to them. And even though they've currently spent over $1 million on attorneys, and I've spent about $150,000 on attorneys, and that explains the whole drama right there. You know, usually the one with the most money wins, and unfortunately that's where we're at right now. But we are fighting to get this before a jury of Multnomah County voters, and hopefully we will do that in short order and reverse this travesty. You can find out more. Call us at that number there on your screen, 503-235-4606. You know, I started a clinic here in Portland, right here in this studio, back in 1998 and 99. I started this show in 96, but we started seeing patients in this studio in 1999. It became a multi-million-dollar business, and we helped 270,000 Americans get their medical marijuana permits all the way from Michigan and Rhode Island. We were the first clinic in those states, and in Colorado, Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii. And this Israeli oil company came in and duped us, and we're fighting them in court. So for more information, call us at 503-235-4606. I also want to encourage you, do not go to my old business. My old business is being, even though some of my friends, people I hired and put into the position, still work there, I urge you, don't go there. And we have a physician referral service. If you need to find a doctor who can help you get medical marijuana anywhere in the country, call us at that number there on your screen. It's 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. And I think we have a question in the audience. Is that right? Yes, we have a studio audience, and you're welcome to come down here any Friday night, and we have a studio audience off camera and an after show party too. So you're welcome to come down and join us. And I believe Judy has something to say. Go right ahead, Judy.
Yeah, question. It was prompted by a news story. But as I was thinking of the question, and you began to talk about the situation that you're in, it kind of goes to the subject that I was thinking of. I was fascinated by Vermont, that their legislators are going to do this. Not that I'm surprised.
Yeah, Vermont and Delaware and New Jersey. All three of those legislators. Yeah. We reported.
New Jersey is the most surprising. Vermont's not a surprise.
Well, they just had that Democratic governor win, and so they are overwhelmingly controlled now by the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party has gotten behind legalization. So I'm happy about that.
Now, did you say the Vermont law? I haven't read about this independently, so here I am again, depending on you for the news. But the Vermont law is different than what other states have written. And to start with, there will be no commercialization whatsoever. But there'll
be a committee that will study it.
You're going to study it, right?
But at first, it would just allow people to possess and grow their own cannabis.
Yeah,
so you could possess it, and you could grow your own, but you wouldn't have to. Grow your own. You could possess it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I'm guessing in their law, it sounds like a real nice, gentle law. I'm guessing that it allows people to share small quantities too. Then I could be wrong, but I would guess.
So I haven't read the details. I only know what I read on that story, to be honest.
Okay, so that was right. So what I was thinking then was, here we are, Oregon. You have done so much, and Oregon has been such a leader in all of this. And yet now we find ourselves with our legislators, because of the stress from Washington, D.C., the pressure from them, and
the drug police, and the corporatist people
that
who
whole
are
structure,
just me, let
right.
my business control everything.
When we put that together with our own internal budgetary problems, and it's resulted in, as we've talked about before, these staggering and ridiculous fees for everything under the sun, including, especially for medical marijuana patients that cannot afford it. And I wondered, have you seen anybody rolling back taxes? Anybody, any sign of sanity out there yet?
Well, there have been a few signs. Ohio voted last year on a bill that would just allow 10 specific businesses that were named in the law. It was basically a mandated oligopoly of 10 businesses that could control the business in Ohio, and that was voted down. I encourage that as well. There's new bills. California seems to be loosening the regulations rather than strengthening them overall, though individual counties and cities have been able to retain the right to say yay or nay on whether to locate those in their community, as we do in Oregon. So I really haven't seen a rollback in the regulations yet. I think we need to. I think that cannabis is overregulated. And until we can grow cannabis without regard to its THC content, but according to the varieties that produce the most fuel, fiber, food, and medicine, then we have a lot more work to do. And that's why we continue doing this show, even though I started this in 1996, and many people said, you're never going to do it. And it took 20 years before we finally did legalize marijuana, and now it is legal for adults. There's still more room to go. Wouldn't you agree, Eddie?
Yeah. Yes. It reminds me of when, well, speaking of not being legal, I remember when you and I first met.
Yeah,
and
let's talk about that. You were just getting your medical marijuana permit. When was that? Like
2004 through 2005, something like
yeah.
that. And at that time I was on like a mail-in probation, well, or
bench probation or something.
Yeah, I lived far away, and I came back and forth to see my probation officer in Lincoln City. And I remember that at that time I told my probation officer, and I remember Dr. Levesque. He was a wonderful man, and I remember how.
He was a co-host on this show, and it was in 1999. We started hosting on the show in December of 1998, and then we started seeing patients in here in May of 1999. As soon as the law went into effect, we had people lining up to see the doctor before our television show, and thus our clinic business was born.
What was his famous line? He used to always say,
"Don't smoke in the rain."
Yeah, he'd say, "You do an oath, and don't smoke in the rain, and I won't smoke while I'm underwater." And
yeah. He had that sense of humor. He's a World War II veteran. He actually celebrated his 90th birthday about 5 years ago, right here on this set.
Nice.
We had a nice birthday cake with him, but then he had broken his leg bone right as it went into his hip, and that just led to, I think he would have lived another 5 or 10 years. He lived to be 92.
Wow.
But that debilitating, very painful injury slowed him down. But, he was a pioneer. He was one of the first 2 medical marijuana doctors in the country.
I got my license first time.
Dr. Todd McCurria down in Berkeley was the very first medical marijuana doctor. In 96, when California passed their law, he was attacked by the White House under the Clinton administration by their General Barry McCaffrey, who was the drug czar at the time. But before McCurria passed away, he actually sold his clinical practice to my business, THCF Medical Clinics. And I operated it and then eventually sold it back to his sister. But we continued seeing patients in Southern California until last year, when this Israeli-Canadian oil company, Adira Energy, came in and based on lies and fraud, have convinced a judge in 10 minutes that they had the right to take over my business.
We'll work on that, brother.
I'm working on it. We're working on it with you too.
I got some ideas and some signs.
For some more information on that, folks, you can call us at our office, 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. We have a caller standing by, I believe. Let's see if we can get that caller in here. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Very well, thank you.
I had a question. I really wanted to get some more details about what you were saying earlier.
Which one? I said a lot. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was getting about finding a doctor that can get medical marijuana in any area of the country.
Yeah.
I work with like a couple of organizations in my area, and I'm in Tennessee.
I see.
And as far as we know, we weren't aware of any doctors that were doing
that.
Yeah,
you don't have a medical marijuana law in the state of Tennessee.
Exactly.
Apparently, the closest place you could probably go would be Michigan. Ohio will set that up soon, but that wouldn't necessarily convince the law enforcement agents in Tennessee to be able to help you.
Right.
You could relocate down to Florida, where they now have a pretty good medical marijuana law. For more information, though, why don't you call our office at that number there on your screen? We'll be happy to get back to you on Sunday or Monday and give you more information after we search our physician referral lines. And so
Right,
just give us a
okay.
call.
Well,
Nice.
Go ahead.
that's what I was thinking. Is the issue seems to be that in states like Tennessee, if you need medical marijuana, you either have to relocate or take it across state lines, and neither one of those is good for some patients can't do that. So,
What
I
part of
was just
Tennessee are you
wondering
in?
what your thoughts were on that kind of thing.
What part of Tennessee are you in?
Northeast Tennessee.
Okay.
Usually
Over
I've heard of
near,
people going like,
what is it?
It's,
Johnson City and Sevierville.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
familiar with the area there.
Johnson City's where I'm from. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's Andrew Johnson, who was the president after Abraham Lincoln. You might have been to the museum there for him. I don't know. But I went to
we
high school in
named our
Asheville,
bank
North
after
Carolina,
him.
and my mom was actually born in what is now the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. A few years before it became a national park. We have a family graveyard inside the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. So I'm very familiar with the area. Hiked on the Appalachian Trail through there a little bit.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love the area. I love hiking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had noticed around here that's kind of the thing is if you need medical marijuana or just decriminalize marijuana, go somewhere else. And
Yeah, that's
the
pretty
issue
much
we're
what
trying
you're
to get
stuck
over
with.
is
No
How can you
doctor,
do it without relocating?
no doctor there can authorize it. But for more information, so we can address your issue specifically, call that number there on your screen, 503-235-4606, and we'll get back to you either Sunday or Monday and see what we can find in terms of doctors. I think the easiest thing from your perspective would be to go to another state to get a recommendation.
Right. Okay.
I wish I could give you
All
better
right, well,
information,
that's
better than
fine.
that, but that's where we're at.
Oh yeah, you're fine. I'll get a hold of you guys through your office number. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on it, and
Glad you did.
I've had a lot of experience with the issue myself, so I might know more than some other people might know. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts and get your thoughts out where everybody else could hear them too.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
It's just an issue we have a lot. Thanks for.
So are
taking
you
my
watching us on Facebook?
call. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Yep.
Okay. It's good to know. We also have been streaming for many years on Ustream, but it never really took off the way YouTube did. Yeah. Ustream.tv.
Right.
But thanks for calling and watching and your interest. If you're out there and you have a question for us, you can call us at 503-673-8579. That's 503-673-8579. Is there anything that you want to touch on here, Eddie?
Speaking of coming under attack, I remember like back in the day, like you helped me from an attack. You kept me from being attacked. I told my probation officer, I told him I was doing all good and everything else, and was working on getting my driver's license. And then as I was going out the door, I was like, well, oh, by the way, I've got my paperwork for my medical marijuana card. And I was really scared. I was like, really, authority. I was like, nah. And he's like, what? He says, we're going to talk to the judge. Your butt's going, buddy. You're going to be in front of the
He's
judge.
going to try to violate your probation,
Right.
your bench probation.
Well, it was like
based on-
regular probation. It was
Yeah.
like I was on active probation. It wasn't bench.
I see.
But then I remember then, and I was like in a panic, and I remember I called you. And I says, Paul, please, do you think you could talk to my PO? And you were like, yeah, I'll talk to him. Well, the next time I saw him, he says to me, well, Mr. Bigger, I heard you've been working hard and you got your driver's license. I said, sir, yes, sir. And he says, well, put it on the table, will you? And I took it out, I put the card on his desk. And then he says, so you got that, how's it going on that medical marijuana license? And I says, well, I got it right here. And I had laminated the card, And then he says, well, put it on my desk. And I did. And he says, well, I talked to your friend there. He's like, Mr. Bigger, you just remember not to do any drugs that you don't have a license from the state of Oregon to use.
I'm glad to know that worked. I have made thousands of calls like that over the years. I don't remember the exact specifics. I have been in testify on probably about 300 different occasions, all the way from Michigan to Hawaii. I testified probably the most, maybe 150 times in Washington State.
Wow.
Where it was highly debated in the legal system. There's a learning curve in each different county, I found, and the smaller your county is, the slower the officials there went through the learning curve.
Yeah.
But in some cases, in Franklin County and the Tri-Cities, I went in and testified there about a dozen times. But in probably 30 different criminal trials.
Nice.
And I'm happy to do it. It was something. It's just like I am about to go to El Salvador to try to meet with my friend Clay Pierce, who's been a volunteer on this show for well over a decade, working in our control room.
Wow.
And a medical marijuana patient that's helped us at Hempstock. He went with me when I spoke in Colombia in South America last year, and he loved Colombia, and he started helping the Native Americans of Colombia, the indigenous community around Cali, in a state called the Cauca, in an area of Colombia. And he was moving there when he had a plane stop in El Salvador. He was not leaving the airport. He did not go through customs, but somehow they searched his bag. And though he was legal with his medical marijuana here in Oregon, and he was legal with medical marijuana in Colombia, he was not legal in El Salvador. And even though he was just transiting through the airport, they came up and took everything he had in his world. And he has been sitting in what some people consider the worst jail in the world. We set up this website for Clay, freeclay.org, and I'm going to fly to El Salvador. You know, it's odd. El Salvador means the Savior. That's kind of a strange name for a country, especially a country like El Salvador, which has been mainly at the behest of United States intelligence agencies in a perpetual state of war and chaos for generations. I mean, back in the 80s with the Reagan Contra, the situation in El Salvador has been horrific. Our government colluded in the massacre of tens of thousands of people in this small country. And in fact, El Salvador still has the highest murder rate in the world, even higher than the United States. And so I'm hoping to, I've scheduled to go to the U.S. Embassy there on Wednesday morning and hopefully meet with Clay in this horrific jail. It's called the Manoa prison. It's the Guardian newspaper out of Britain and the Daily Mail in separate articles said it's the worst prison in the world. Oh. And I don't know exactly how you quantify such things, but one of the things that's been happening to Clay, he's a disabled gentleman who's 58, and he has been made to sleep on the concrete without a blanket for the past month and a half, even though he's a medical marijuana patient. So to find out more about that, go to freeclay.org. I'll be reporting more about my trip to El Salvador. I'm scheduled to be back here next Friday, and so we'll have another live show. That'll be our last live show of the year. Then we'll go through 3 weeks where we have pre-recorded shows.
Right. Well, maybe we could talk about that. What happened with Clay down there? On the show on 100.7.
That sounds good.
For sure.
That sounds good.
My
So that's on Wednesday. Although that's in January, though.
January 10th.
January 10th.
8 a.m.
Okay.
Heck yeah. Yep.
At 106.
100.7 The Boss FM, Newport, Oregon.
Okay.
And
well,
you
we
could go if you want.
Does it stream online too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And also it's in Egypt, all around the world. Also, if you want to look at our old podcasts or any Weedman podcasts, you go on there to the website and then go to the podcast and key search Weedman, and you'll find our stories that we started. Because people give me money. I'm sorry, Paul. People give me money in Newport, and so far, I put it in my Catholic devotional. Mm-hmm. They give it to me. I've been giving it to our soup kitchens.
All right.
Giving about $800 to all the soup
Congratulations.
kitchens. Well,
that's a good thing.
The Lord did it, I didn't. The Lord made this plant.
Yeah, that's true. And it's the oldest and most productive crop. That's my constant admonition to all is that cannabis is the oldest crop cultivated over 12,000 years, perhaps over 25,000 years. It's the first crop purposely cultivated by humans. You see there's seed oil here. This is a hemp wick, and it was an illuminant. And this is hempcrete. It's concrete made out of the stems of the marijuana plant mixed with powdered limestone. And that's how they created the original concrete many years ago. I want a house made out of it too. We have a call. Let's take the call. Welcome to the show, caller.
Yeah, hey, thanks a lot, fellas. Paul and Ed, I appreciate all you guys do. And
thank you.
Getting to the material. My question is to all the construction guys out there that work really hard and go home and partake in cannabis, but they're worried about showing up the next day to prize UA.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing. You know, currently it is the employer's discretion, and most of them realize that because of insurance rates, they often test for cannabis, but many employers, based on that, will let people go. And currently, Oregon's a right-to-work state, and so most states, cannabis users do not have protection yet from that. You know, they can also test you for tobacco and fire you for tobacco. There are very few employers do that. Some do. And so until cannabis is legal on a federal level, I'm not sure how we can address changing those laws and requiring employers to mandate that they can't arrest you for using cannabis in your own private time and not being intoxicated on the job.
That's a good point. That's very true. Hopefully someday that will happen.
I
if
think
not,
it will.
maybe
I think it's
everyone...
inevitable because cannabis helps people. It makes you healthier. You know, we read about the various medical attributes every week here. We had some that we talked about today, how it saves mental function. You know, when I was a kid, I believed it was like alcohol and killed brain cells, and now we know it protects brain cells. So nothing could be farther from the truth. Science will illuminate that eventually, and hopefully we can end those employment discrimination laws against cannabis users.
Amen to that. Thanks a lot, fellas. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Sure.
And you know, brother, one nice thing that I've heard from employers that now the marijuana is legal in Oregon is they're like, hey, you know, I'd rather have a guy smoke weed or use cannabis than a guy drinking, because you know the guy that's smoking some cannabis, he's going to show up. And the guy that's out drinking all night, if he shows up, he's not going to be in any shape to work.
Yeah.
So,
or he won't be working as well when he's hungover.
Right?
That's for sure. You know, we are blessed that Jorge Cervantes allows us to run his videos on here. Jorge has written a number of books about marijuana horticulture and the Cannabis Encyclopedia, and we have a little video we're going to run a bit of right now about making clones. So stay tuned, and we'll be back to close the show out in just a few minutes.
Well, what we're going to do here is take a couple of clones off of this plant, but it's a little bit of a problem because it's, as you can see, it's already started to flower, and it's only the 10th of August. But what I've done is I've gone in here and I found a couple of them, like this one here. I can make a clone out of this cutting here, and a couple of more of these small ones right down inside. Here's a couple of them here. And they don't have a lot of little hairs on them. They've just started to hair up. But these really aren't going to amount to much, so I can take those and make cuttings. And in order to do that, I'm going to take this, my Swiss Army knife, and just cut this off. And then I'm going to lightly scrape it like that. And that light scraping will help it initiate roots. Okay? And then the next thing I'm going to do is just trim this off here. Notice I trimmed it nice and tight. I'm going to take this leaf and just cut it in half. A little bit more than half, actually. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this leaf. Now, it's still got the leaves, but it's going to transpire less. And when it transpires less, that'll give it a chance to develop some more roots. So I'm going to take this cutting right here and set it in a glass. Now this is a glass of purified water or distilled water. It's a glass of distilled water here. So let's take another cutting. We'll do this a couple more times, 3 more times actually, and then we'll go to the next step. Now we'll do one more. Let's see.